Welcome to Whispers of the Night, where every story is a new mystery, waiting to be solved. Stay curious and share the thrill with fellow mystery lovers. Let's get started. Hercule Poirot and the Mystery of the Whispering Isle. Chapter 1. An Invitation to Mystery. The sea lay restless, beneath a churning grey sky. Waves crashed furiously against the jagged cliffs of Whispering Isle. The storm had not yet arrived, but its presence loomed dark, heavy, inevitable. The ferry boat shuddered, its hull slick with salt spray, as it docked at the small jetty. Passengers disembarked, coats flapping, faces turned downward against the spray. Among them a small man, a bowler hat perched carefully on his head, an elegant moustache, untouched by the wind. He descended with precision, his luggage a single, compact suitcase, carried ashore by a surly boatman. "Monsieur," said the man with a curt nod. Poirot replied politely, then stepped briskly onto the narrow stone path. This was Hercule Poirot, celebrated detective, master of psychological insight, though today simply a guest. A letter had summoned him, signed by Sir Felix Harcourt. It gave no explanation, only an invitation. Come to Whispering Isle this weekend. It is a matter of utmost importance. Poirot climbed the winding path. His gaze swept across the island. Dark cliffs jutted into the sea, like the teeth of a great beast. Beyond them, Harcourt Manor, perched dangerously at the edge, tall windows gleaming faintly, the house of secrets. At the hilltop, a figure waited. Lady Genevieve Harcourt, young, beautiful, her silk scarf fluttering in the wind. A long navy coat wrapped her frame. A velvet hat pinned her auburn hair. Her smile was graceful, practiced. "Monsieur Poirot," she greeted warmly. "Welcome to Whispering Isle. I trust the journey was not unpleasant." "Not at all, madame." Poirot bowed slightly. "Though the sea, she, is in a temper today. I hope it does not foretell a storm." Within the house, her smile faltered, a flicker of tension in her eyes. "Let us hope not," she whispered. "Come inside. You must be cold." Marble floors gleamed beneath a chandelier. The air inside was warmer, but no less oppressive. A butler appeared silently. He took Poirot's coat and suitcase, then vanished, as swiftly as he had come. "You are the last to arrive," Lady Genevieve continued. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she guided him through the house. "Everyone else is in the drawing room. Sir Felix will join us shortly. He's been—" She hesitated, as if searching for a better word. Poirot made no comment, but he filed away her hesitation in the recesses of his mind. They entered the drawing room, a large and elegant space dominated by an ornate fireplace. Leather armchairs circled a low table. The room hummed with conversation, but it fell silent the instant Poirot stepped inside. 4 guests turned to stare. Not hostility, but curiosity. Curiosity, tinged with suspicion. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lady Genevieve said smoothly, "allow me to introduce Monsieur Hercule Poirot. He will be joining us for the weekend." A brief pause. Then a man in his mid-30s rose from his seat. Unruly dark hair, paint-smeared shirt. "The famous detective," he said with a hint of mockery. "I've read about you. I'm Bernard Harcourt, Sir Felix's son." "A pleasure, monsieur," Poirot replied, shaking his hand. The grip was firm, but the tension in Bernard's jaw was unmistakable. One by one, the other guests introduced themselves. Camilla Sinclair, Sir Felix's secretary. Impeccable posture, cool efficiency. But her eyes betrayed a flicker of something deeper. Resentment, perhaps. Dr. Arthur Winslow, a family friend. Warm demeanor, yes, but an air of preoccupation, as though he carried an invisible burden. Lavinia March, a distant cousin, a successful novelist. Her gaze, sharp as her pen. Captain Geoffrey Abbott, former naval officer, now Sir Felix's business partner. A weathered face, a man who had weathered more than storms at sea. Poirot exchanged pleasantries. His keen eyes flicked from face to face. On the surface, cordiality. Beneath it, tension simmered. Camilla avoiding Bernard's gaze. Lady Genevieve clutching her pearls when Captain Abbott spoke, small gestures yet heavy with meaning. They settled into their seats. Lady Genevieve rang a small bell. A maid appeared with trays of tea and biscuits. The clink of cups and spoons, a brief respite from the undercurrent. "I understand you were invited by my father," Bernard said suddenly, his stare piercing, unrelenting. "Did he tell you why?" "No," Poirot admitted. "The letter was brief. It merely stated that my presence was required." "Curious," Lavinia murmured. Her finger tapped lightly against the rim of her teacup. "Felix is not the type to extend invitations without reason." "Indeed," Poirot agreed. His gaze shifted to Lady Genevieve. "Perhaps Sir Felix will enlighten us when he joins the party." Lady Genevieve's hand trembled slightly. She set her cup on the saucer with care. "Yes, I'm sure he will. He's just attending to some last-minute business." The conversation drifted. Lighter topics, polite laughter. But Poirot did not ignore the undercurrents. These guests were not merely acquaintances. They were something more, something far more entangled, bound by complex ties. Family, business, and perhaps betrayal. After tea, Lady Genevieve excused herself to check on Felix. Her departure left an air of uncertainty. The guests dispersed, some to their rooms, others wandering the house. But the absence of Sir Felix lingered, like an unanswered question. Poirot, however, remained by the fireplace, his mind already piecing together the puzzle of this peculiar gathering. The storm outside intensified, wind howling like a restless spirit. Poirot gazed out the window. Waves lashed against the cliffs. A sense of foreboding settled over him. "There is a storm inside this house as well," he murmured to himself. "And I fear it will break soon." Just then, the clock on the mantel struck 8. The sound echoed through the room, like a warning bell. Poirot stirred slightly. His gaze shifted toward the empty doorway, the one through which Lady Genevieve had departed. His instincts whispered, the absence of Sir Felix was more than lateness. As the storm battered the island and the wind howled outside, Poirot felt the first gusts of a far more dangerous tempest, one brewing within these walls. With a final glance at the fire, he straightened his posture, smoothed the front of his jacket. "It is time," he murmured, "to uncover what secrets this house seeks to hide. But first, even the greatest detective must rest." Poirot ascended the grand staircase, his footsteps soft against the carpet. He made his way to his room. There, he unpacked carefully, laid down his belongings, and finally rested. His mind spun with unanswered questions. As the wind howled beyond the window, sleep came slowly. But at last, it did come, and with it, the promise of new revelations in the morning. Morning arrived at Whispering Isle. Bleak, oppressive. The sky muted storm clouds reluctant to release their grip. The smell of salt and damp earth filled the air. The household stirred awake. But tranquility was short-lived. It was Camilla Sinclair who first raised the alarm. Her footsteps echoed through the corridor, urgent, unsteady. She rushed into the drawing room, face pale, hands trembling. "Sir Felix, he's missing. His room, it's empty." Lady Genevieve, seated at the table, nearly dropped her cup of tea. Porcelain rattled against the saucer as she rose, confusion shifting swiftly to panic. "Empty? What do you mean, Camilla? Where could he have gone?" "The window was open," Camilla replied breathlessly. "Facing the sea. You must see it for yourselves." Bernard Harcourt lounged in the corner, a cigarette balanced lazily between his fingers. He raised a cynical eyebrow, but said nothing. Poirot, who had been observing quietly, set his cup aside, then rose with measured grace. "Perhaps, mademoiselle," he said gently, "you would lead us there." A line of concerned guests formed. Now fully alert, they followed Camilla up the grand staircase. The corridor was silent, save for the soft thud of their footsteps against the carpet. At last, they reached Sir Felix's bedroom. The door stood ajar. A chilled draught escaped into the hallway. Inside, the room was deceptively. The bed had not been slept in. A small reading lamp still cast a dim glow. The large window wide open, curtains billowing in the wind, framing the dramatic view of the sea beyond. Lady Genevieve gasped. She clutched the doorway for support. Felix wouldn't have left in the middle of the night. He hated the cold. This doesn't make sense. Nevertheless, madame, Poirot murmured, stepping forward. We must consider all possibilities. The open window is indeed peculiar. Camilla pointed toward a small table by the window. His walking stick. It's missing. That's unlike him, he always needed it. The group stood in silence, until Captain Geoffrey Abbott broke the spell. We should search the cliffs. If the window was open, he could have. He hesitated, unwilling to finish the thought. Let us not assume the worst just yet, Poirot interjected, his voice calm but firm. We will search, of course, but first I wish to examine the room. Lady Genevieve stepped back. She dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Poirot moved methodically, eyes flickering over every detail. The bed covers undisturbed. On the nightstand, a broken porcelain figurine, its pieces arranged in haste, as though someone had tried to hide the mess. Poirot picked up one of the fragments, examined it closely. A recent break, I think, he said thoughtfully. Madame Harcourt, did Sir Felix often sleep with the window open? Never, she replied, shaking her head. He was particular about draughts. He always complained if the room wasn't perfectly warm. Interesting, Poirot murmured. He knelt by the window. His gloved fingers traced the frame. There, caught in the latch, a small piece of fabric, silk, by the feel of it. He removed it carefully, slipped it into his pocket. What have you found? Asked Lavinia March, watching intently. A clue, perhaps, Poirot replied enigmatically. He leaned slightly out of the window, inspecting the wet ground below. No footprints, none at all. The soft earth was damp from last night's rain. If Sir Felix had climbed out or been forced out, there should be traces. But there are none. Captain Abbott frowned. Could he have fallen further out? Closer to the cliffs, perhaps? Perhaps, Poirot allowed. Though his expression betrayed doubt, a sudden shout shattered the stillness. Bernard Harcourt stood in the doorway, breathless from a brief foray toward the cliffs. Camilla found his walking stick, he announced grimly. Near the edge of the cliff. Lady Genevieve gasped. Her composure crumbled. No, he can't be. Poirot placed a steadying hand on her arm. We do not know anything for certain yet, madame. I will go to the cliffs myself. The group moved outside, the wind biting against their faces. Near the cliff's edge, Camilla Sinclair stood motionless. The walking stick lay at her feet. She pointed, silently, toward the jagged rocks below, where the sea churned with relentless fury. It's his, she whispered. I'm sure of it. Lady Genevieve sobbed quietly. Bernard lit another cigarette. The flame flickered in the wind, his face set, expression cold, distant. He's gone, Bernard said flatly. It was only a matter of time. Bernard, Lady Genevieve cried. How can you say such a thing? Because it's the truth, Bernard replied bitterly. My father made enemies of everyone, including his family. Don't act surprised. Poirot regarded Bernard carefully. And you, monsieur? Were you one of those enemies? Bernard exhaled smoke. His eyes narrowed. If you think I pushed him off the cliff, you're wasting your time. I think only, Poirot replied smoothly, that there is more to discover. He turned to Camilla. Mademoiselle, may I see the walking stick? She handed it to him. He examined it closely. A faint smudge of dirt near the handle. But nothing unusual. Satisfied, he handed it back. The group began to disperse. Poirot lingered at the cliff's edge, his gaze fixed on the crashing waves below. Then something, a faint trace of perfume, drifting past him on the wind. The same scent he had noticed earlier, in Sir Felix's room. Returning to the house, Poirot examined the bedside table again. He picked up the fragments of the broken figurine, then turned his attention to a silk scarf. One Lady Genevieve had worn the previous evening. The scarf was missing. As he pondered, a maid entered nervously, holding a sketchbook. "I found this in Mr. Bernard's room," she whispered. "I thought it might be important." Poirot accepted it, flipped through the pages. He paused at several angry caricatures of Sir Felix. One in particular showed him falling off a cliff. Poirot closed the book thoughtfully. He murmured. The threads of the puzzle are beginning to weave themselves, but the pattern is far from clear. As the day wore on, speculation spread among the guests. Some whispered of suicide, others of a tragic accident. But Poirot, standing by the window, watching storm clouds gather again, knew better. "This is no accident," he said softly. "Someone has planned this, very carefully. But the little grey cells will uncover the truth." Chapter 2. Clues on the Cliffs. The search began in earnest. The wind picked up, whistling across the cliffs. Like a warning from some ancient, vengeful spirit, Captain Geoffrey Abbott led the way. His boots crunched against the rocky terrain. His eyes swept the landscape with practiced precision. Poirot followed closely, sharp eyes catching every detail, every indent in the earth, every gust of wind that carried the scent of salt and mystery. Camilla Sinclair, Dr. Arthur Winslow, Bernard Harcourt. They trailed behind, faces taut with tension. Lady Genevieve had stayed behind at the manor, too distraught to continue. Lavinia March, however, followed with her ever-present notebook, recording every step. "There," Captain Abbott said suddenly, pointing toward a cluster of jagged rocks. At the base of the lighthouse, the group hurried down the uneven slope, their breath visible in the cold morning air. As they reached the rocks, Poirot's gaze was drawn to a splash of dark fabric, snagged on a sharp outcrop. It was Sir Felix's overcoat, its lining torn, damp from the sea spray. The sight sent a shiver through Camilla Sinclair. She covered her mouth with her hand. "His coat," she whispered. "But where is he?" Poirot bent down, examined the coat carefully. From one pocket he retrieved a small, crumpled receipt. Unfolding it with delicate fingers, a pearl necklace, purchased just 2 days prior. "Curious," Poirot murmured. He tucked the receipt into his pocket. "Captain." Abbott scanned the rocks, the crashing waves. "If he fell from the cliffs, the body could be anywhere by now," he said grimly. "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his tone non-committal. He straightened, looked toward the lighthouse, its whitewashed walls stained by years of storms. "Let us speak to the lighthouse keeper. He may have seen something." They reached the heavy door. Captain Abbott tried the handle, but it refused to budge. "Locked," he muttered. "We can't get in." Poirot considered this, then nodded. "Very well. We will return later, if needed." He cast a final glance at the structure, as though storing the image in his mind. The group proceeded to a nearby cottage, where the lighthouse keeper, Mr. Finlay, greeted them with suspicion. The old man's face was weathered, eyes squinting perpetually against sea and wind. He peered at them before reluctantly letting them inside. "Strange folk, coming around on a morning like this," he muttered. "What do you want?" "We are looking for Sir Felix Harcourt," Poirot explained. "He is missing. We believe he may have come this way last night. Did you see anything unusual?" Mr. Finlay scratched his chin. Thoughtfully, "I did see someone heading toward the cliffs late last night," he admitted. "Couldn't see who. Too dark, and raining buckets. But they were moving fast, like they didn't want to be seen." "And you did not investigate, monsieur?" Poirot asked. "Not my business." The old man shrugged. "People come and go on this island. I don't ask questions." Dr. Winslow shifted uncomfortably. "It could have been Felix," he said quietly. "He's been under tremendous stress. His business dealings, There were complications. It wouldn't surprise me if He stopped, abruptly, as though realizing he had said too much. Suicide, you mean? Bernard interjected. His voice cut through the room like a black knife. That's what you're implying, isn't it, Doctor? That my father jumped? Dr. Winslow flushed. I'm only saying, it's a possibility. Felix was not a man without troubles. And yet, Poirot said thoughtfully, a man burdened by such troubles might confide in someone. Did Sir Felix share his concerns with you, Doctor? Not directly, Winslow replied, avoiding Poirot's gaze. But I knew enough. Everyone did. Satisfied for the moment, Poirot thanked Mr. Finlay. He led the group back outside, where the wind continued to batter the cliffs. As they walked, Lavinia March caught up to Poirot, her notebook clutched tightly in her hands. I saw someone sneaking out of the manor last night, Lavinia confessed, her voice low. I was by the library window, when I noticed a figure slipping through the side door. I couldn't tell who it was, but they were headed toward the cliffs. Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. And why did you not mention this earlier, mademoiselle? I wasn't sure. It was important, Lavinia replied, though the tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. Back at the manor, the group reconvened. The fire crackled in the hearth. Lady Genevieve sat by the window, staring out at the sea with vacant eyes. She turned as they entered. Her gaze locked briefly on Poirot, then shifted to Bernard. Did you find anything? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. His coat, Camilla said softly, and a receipt for a pearl necklace. Lady Genevieve's hand flew to her throat, but she said nothing. Poirot cleared his throat, turned to Camilla. You have been quiet, mademoiselle. I understand Sir Felix recently threatened to dismiss you from your position. Is that true? Camilla's eyes widened. For a moment, she looked ready to deny it. Then she sighed. Yes, he found out about a mistake I made with the company finances. A mistake that could have cost him a lot of money. I tried to fix it, but he said it was too late. He was planning to fire me after this weekend. And yet, you stayed, Poirot observed. Why? Because I wanted to explain myself, she replied, her voice breaking. I wanted him to understand. It wasn't betrayal, just a mistake. But he wouldn't listen. Curious, Poirot murmured thoughtfully. He then turned to Bernard, lounging near the fireplace, sketchbook in hand. And you, monsieur, what did you do last night? Bernard smirked. I went to bed early like a good boy. Interesting, Poirot replied. His gaze lingered on the sketchbook. May I see that? Bernard hesitated, then handed it over with a shrug. Poirot flipped through the pages, stopped at a series of drawings Sir Felix in various humiliating scenes, one of them showing him tumbling off a cliff. You have a vivid imagination, Poirot said dryly, returning the sketchbook. Don't read too much into it, Bernard replied. It's just a way to vent. The room fell silent. Poirot moved to the window, his mind racing. The clues were scattered like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Lavinia's account of a figure sneaking out, Camilla's threatened dismissal, the pearl necklace purchased just days before Felix's disappearance. One must be careful with lies, Poirot thought. They are like threads. Tug on one, and the entire fabric unravels. Turning back to the group, Poirot smiled faintly. The mystery begins to reveal itself, mes amis. I believe we are closer to understanding what happened to Felix, but there is still more to discover, mes amis. The truth it hides just beneath the surface. The heavy curtains in the drawing room swayed. The wind outside pressed against the windows. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows, but the warmth did little to ease the tension simmering within. Lady Genevieve sat, stiffly in an armchair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Bernard Harcourt leaned against the mantel, tapping his cigarette ash into a tray. Camilla Sinclair perched on the edge of a velvet sofa, rigid posture, as if poised for flight. Lavinia March scribbled furiously in her notebook, her pen scratched like a whisper in the silence. Poirot sat near the fire, hands steepled, the watchful observer, waiting for cracks to widen. It's all quite convenient, isn't it? Bernard broke the silence. His voice dripped with sarcasm. He flicked his gaze toward Lady Genevieve. Father disappears, and who benefits? The charming young widow, of course. Lady Genevieve's face flushed. Her knuckles whitened. How dare you, Bernard? I loved your father. Despite his flaws, I would never wish him harm. Loved him? Bernard sneered. Let's not pretend. You married him for his money, and everyone knows it. Now he's vanished, and you inherit everything. How fortunate. For you. Monsieur. Poirot's voice cut in, calm, firm. Accusations without proof are dangerous. Perhaps we should consider another possibility. Your own relationship with your father. It was hardly harmonious. Bernard scoffed. Of course we had differences. He was a tyrant, controlling, manipulative. But do you think I'd kill him? He wasn't worth the effort. Yet your sketches suggest otherwise, Camilla said coldly. All those drawings of your father, humiliated, disgraced, some even showing his death. You've thought about it plenty. Bernard's eyes narrowed. And what about you, Camilla? Father caught you skimming company money. He was going to fire you, wasn't he? Maybe you decided to strike first. Enough, Lady Genevieve cried. She stood abruptly, voice trembling but chin high. We are tearing each other apart, and none of this will bring Felix back. Monsieur Poirot, please. You must help. Us. Poirot rose slowly, expression unreadable. Oui, madame. I intend to. But first, I must see the full picture. The room grew heavy. Lavinia March kept scribbling in her notebook, oblivious to the shifting mood. Poirot's gaze lingered on her hand. What secrets had she captured? With her keen eye and quick pen. Later that night, long after the household retreated to their rooms, Poirot moved silently through the dim corridors of Harcourt Manor. His instincts were pricked. A ripple in the fabric of deceit, demanding exploration. The wind howled. He stepped outside. The chill bit through his coat. Staying close to the shadows, he followed the path leading to the cliffs, and in the distance he saw a figure, moving swiftly toward the rocks. The edge. Ah, he murmured to himself. La curiosité me guide. He quickened his pace, careful, each step silent. As he drew closer, the figure stopped, near the cliffs. Moonlight revealed a familiar face. Lady Genevieve, Poirot called softly. She spun around, eyes wide with fear. Beside her stood Captain Geoffrey Abbott, equally startled. Poirot stepped forward, the faintest smile curling his lips. A secret rendezvous, is it not? I wonder what Felix would think. Genevieve's breath hitched. She clutched Abbott's arm. It's not what you think. We were just talking. Ah, mais oui. Talking in the dead of night, by the cliffs, far from the warmth of the manor. Most peculiar, madame. Perhaps you will enlighten me as to the nature of this conversation. Captain Abbott exhaled sharply. You may as well tell him, Genevieve. He already knows too much. Genevieve nodded reluctantly, her gaze fixed on the ground. Felix knew about us, about my past with Geoffrey. It ended before I married Felix, but he never forgave me. He held it over me, always reminding me I was beholden to him. Poirot's voice softened, but probed. And now that Felix is gone, you are free, oui? I didn't kill him, she cried. I swear it. I may have hated his control, but I never wished him dead. Poirot studied her, then shifted his gaze to Abbott. And you, monsieur? Were you here to discuss the past, or perhaps the future? Abbott's jaw tightened. Felix threatened to expose me, to ruin my reputation, my business dealings. But I didn't kill him either. We met tonight only to decide what we would do if he returned. If he returned, Poirot repeated softly. Then, you believe he is still alive? I don't know what to believe anymore, Genevieve whispered. Poirot slipped a hand into his pocket, withdrew a small object. Tell me, Captain, is this yours? He held up a gold cufflink. Its surface gleamed in the moonlight. Abbott's face paled. "Where did you find that?" "Near the cliffs," Poirot replied. "Close to where we now stand." Abbott looked away, but Genevieve clutched his arm again. "Geoffrey, please. If you know something I don't," he snapped, pulling free. "I lost that cufflink days ago. Anyone could have found it." Poirot tucked the cufflink back into his pocket. Expression thoughtful. "Perhaps. But there is more, mes amis." From his coat he produced a fragment of letter, edges burned, the words faintly visible. "The lighthouse. A debt to be paid." Genevieve gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Felix had debts. Debts, Poirot mused, or obligations of another kind, but the meaning of this letter remains unclear. For now. The wind howled. Poirot gestured back toward the manor. "Come, let us return inside where it is warm. The night air is unkind to those with heavy hearts." They walked back slowly, but Poirot's mind raced. The clues were forming a pattern, yet the final piece was missing, the key that would unlock the truth. Patience, he told himself. Soon, the puzzle will be complete. Chapter 3. Morning dawned cold, grey, the sea still restless from the night's storm. But it was not the weather that chilled the inhabitants of Hercule Manor. It was the discovery made just after breakfast, the one that sent shock rippling through the house. Camilla Sinclair burst into the drawing room, her face pale as milk, breathing ragged. "Monsieur Poirot," she gasped. "Sir Felix's body. They found it. In the lighthouse cellar." The room fell silent, as if the air itself had been sucked away. Poirot set down his teacup, rose swiftly. He gestured for her to lead the way. Behind him, Lady Genevieve clutched the back of a chair, knuckles white. Bernard Harker exchanged a dark glance with Lavinia March, who quickly snapped her notebook shut. Within minutes they reached the lighthouse. Its white tower loomed stark against the overcast sky. Captain Geoffrey Abbott and Dr. Arthur Winslow were waiting at the base. Abbott looked grim. Winslow's hands trembled as he adjusted his spectacles. "The body is inside," Abbott said quietly. He pulled open the heavy door to the cellar. The air was damp, salt and mildew. A lantern swung from a hook, casting dim, unsteady light. Sir Felix Harcourt lay crumpled beneath a pile of tangled fishing nets, his overcoat damp, his head resting at an unnatural angle. A deep gash slashed across his temple. Poirot approached carefully, eyes scanning the body and the surroundings. He murmured. He did not fall. He was struck. The blow came first. Dr. Winslow hesitated, then knelt beside the corpse. His fingers probed gently around the wound. "Yes," he confirmed reluctantly. "The injury to the head was the cause of death. Judging by the stiffness, he's been dead since around midnight." Poirot nodded. His gaze caught a small object, half hidden beneath the nets. He pulled it free. A blood-stained handkerchief, embroidered with the initials G.A. "Captain Abbott," Poirot said, turning. "This is yours, is it not?" Abbott's face darkened. I don't know how it got there. I haven't seen that handkerchief in days." "Perhaps," Poirot replied, tucking it into his pocket, but his eyes flicked toward the cellar door. "And this door? Has it been forced?" "Yes," Abbott admitted. "We found the lock broken when we arrived, but as far as I know, only the keeper and Sir Felix had keys." "Curiouser and curiouser," Poirot muttered. He glanced at Lady Genevieve Ashen leaning against the wall. "Madam, please, you must return to the house. This scene is not for you." She nodded weakly, allowed Bernard to escort her away. Once they were gone, Poirot crouched again beside the body. His hand slipped into Felix's pocket and drew out a fragment of paper, the other half of the letter, the same one he had recovered from the fireplace. "It is complete," he whispered. The full message read, "Meet me at the lighthouse. Midnight. The debt must be paid." He straightened slowly, mind racing. "The debt," he murmured. "What debt did you owe, Sir Felix? And to whom?" As Poirot turned to leave the cellar, Lavinia. Lavinia March appeared in the doorway, her notebook clutched tightly to her chest. "I heard what happened," she whispered. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Poirot studied her for a moment. "Perhaps, mademoiselle. Earlier you mentioned hearing Sir Felix recite a poem. Do you remember it?" She nodded, pulled out her notebook, flipped to a page already filled with hurried lines. "Yes. It was strange. I overheard him in the library, muttering to himself just yesterday." She read softly. "The keeper waits where shadows dwell. Upon the shore a tolling bell. The debt is paid when blood is spilled, and secrets buried shall be fulfilled." "Does it mean anything to you?" she asked, her brow furrowed. Poirot tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Oui, mademoiselle. It means a great deal. This is not idle poetry. It is a riddle one that speaks of betrayal and hidden truths." "Do you think he knew he was going to die?" Lavinia whispered. "Perhaps," Poirot replied, "or perhaps he intended to confront the one who held this debt. Either way, it did not end as he expected." They returned to the manor. The drawing-room tense, every breath heavy. Lady Genevieve, Bernard Harcourt, Camilla Sinclair, Captain Abbott, Lavinia March, all sat in strained silence, awaiting Poirot's next words. The storm outside roared with renewed fury. The windows rattled. The fire hissed. Poirot stood by the hearth. His gaze swept across the room. "Let us consider what we know, mes amis. Sir Felix did not fall by accident. He was lured to the lighthouse, struck on the head, left to die. The handkerchief, the letter, the broken door, each points to a deliberate act." "Then who did it?" Camilla demanded. Poirot smiled faintly. "Patience, mademoiselle. We are close. But the final revelation requires one more piece of the puzzle." A flash of lightning split the sky. Shadows leapt across the walls. The truth, Poirot knew, lurked within those shadows, waiting. "Tomorrow," he said softly. "Tomorrow, the final thread shall be pulled, and the entire tapestry will be revealed." The next morning, the house trembled with tension. Rain pattered against the glass. The sea roared a reminder of the night before. Poirot sat in the drawing-room, coffee in hand, eyes half closed, reviewing the timeline. "Hastings would call it a riddle of alibis," he muttered, "when everyone claims to be everywhere, and yet no one is where they should be." He recalled their stories. Bernard Harcourt sketching by the cliffs, Lady Genevieve locked in her room, Camilla Sinclair early to bed, Captain Abbott wandering the grounds. Poirot's fingers tapped the table. "There is a thread of truth hidden among the lies, but I must pull gently, lest it snap." He summoned Camilla Sinclair first. She entered the room hesitantly, smoothing her dress as she sat down opposite him. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began, "I have been told Sir Felix intended to dismiss you from his employ. Would you care to elaborate on why?" Camilla's eyes darted to the window, avoiding his gaze. "It was a misunderstanding. There were discrepancies in the accounts, and Sir Felix believed I had been embezzling money. But I swear I wasn't. I made a mistake, yes, but I didn't steal from him." "And yet," Poirot said gently, "you did not correct this misunderstanding before his death. That must have been difficult, non? To know you were under suspicion." "It was," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I tried to explain, but Sir Felix wouldn't listen. He threatened to ruin my career. I had no choice but to stay, and hope I could convince him." Poirot leaned forward slightly. "And did you convince him? Or did you see his death as the end of your problem?" Camilla's face flushed. "I didn't kill him, Monsieur Poirot. I was in my room all night, you can ask the maid. She brought me tea before bed." "Ah, but the maid only saw you early in the evening, not later," Poirot pointed out. "And you see, mademoiselle, there are footprints leading from the lighthouse toward the servants' quarters. Someone walked that path in the mud last night. Could it have been you?" She shook her head vehemently. "No, I swear it wasn't me." "Then we shall see," Poirot murmured, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. Next, he called for Lady Genevieve. She entered, her eyes puffy and red, as if she had been crying. Madame, Poirot began gently, you've been under great strain, I know. But I must ask, did you truly remain in your room all night? Or did you meet someone, perhaps Captain Abbott, as you did before? Genevieve's lips trembled, but she composed herself. I stayed in my room, she said firmly. I couldn't bear to see anyone after Felix disappeared. I was overwhelmed. And yet, Poirot said softly, your fear of being implicated must weigh heavily upon you. You had a motive, madame. Sir Felix knew of your past affair and used it to control you. Were you not desperate to be free of him? I didn't kill him, she exclaimed, tears brimming in her eyes. I was afraid, yes, but I would never. Did you know about the blackmail letter? Poirot interrupted gently. Genevieve blinked. What? Letter? There is a hidden compartment in Sir Felix's desk, Poirot explained. There I found a letter threatening to expose a scandal. It is unsigned, but it speaks of a debt owed and the possibility of ruin. I believe Sir Felix was being blackmailed. No, she whispered. I didn't know. Poirot studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Merci, madame. That will be all. For now. Finally, he called Bernard Harcourt. The young man entered with his usual air of defiance. He slumped into the chair as if the entire ordeal bored him. Monsieur Bernard, Poirot began slowly, you claimed to be sketching by the cliffs during the storm. What exactly were you sketching? The waves, Bernard replied lazily. The cliffs, the storm. It was dramatic. And you expect me to believe, Poirot asked, raising an eyebrow, that you were outside, in a storm, to capture nature's drama? Believe what you want, Bernard shrugged. I didn't kill him. Poirot stood. He walked toward the window, gazing out as he spoke. And yet you were angry with your father. You despised him. And your sketches of him falling from the cliffs. Those were not idle fantasies. They were reflections of your deepest desires. Bernard stood abruptly. I didn't act on them. I couldn't have. Then how do you explain, Poirot asked, turning to face him, the faint trail of mud leading from the cliffs to the servants' quarters? I don't know, Bernard stammered. You do know, Poirot said firmly. But whether you are the murderer or simply protecting someone remains to be seen. The young man glared at him, but said nothing further. As Bernard left, Poirot sat back down, deep in thought. The timeline still had gaps, but the web of deceit was becoming clearer. Each person had something to hide, and each alibi was tied to another's lie. Ah, Poirot murmured, steepling his fingers. The alibis are like clockwork gears, mes amis. If I find the broken cog, the entire mechanism will collapse. Soon, the truth will reveal itself. Chapter 4. The next morning, crisp and clear. The storm had finally passed. The cliffs glistened in the sunlight. Inside Harcourt Manor, Poirot stood once again in the drawing-room, his small frame perfectly composed, his eyes sharp and expectant. The household had gathered at his request. Lady Genevieve, Bernard Harcourt, Camilla Sinclair, Captain Abbott, Dr. Winslow, Lavinia March. The air was thick with anticipation, as though everyone knew. The moment of truth was at hand. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice calm but commanding. We have arrived at the conclusion of our little drama. Each of you has secrets, motives, and alibis that could suggest guilt, but only one of you committed the crime. Today, we shall see how the threads of deception have woven a deadly tapestry. He began pacing slowly, hands clasped behind his back. Let us first consider the scene at the lighthouse. Sir Felix was lured there, under the pretense of a meeting orchestrated through a letter. This letter was recovered in fragments later reconstructed, revealing its purpose to summon Sir Felix to his death. He turned to Lady Genevieve. She sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap. Madam, you feared Sir Felix would expose your past affair with Captain Abbott, but you did not kill him. Your fear made you cautious, not murderous. And you, Captain, Poirot added, shifting his gaze. You were implicated through the handkerchief, embroidered with your initials. A handkerchief, deliberately placed at the scene to mislead us. You were not the one who struck the fatal blow." Captain Abbot exhaled, relief momentarily washing over his face. But Poirot's gaze was already moving. To Bernard Harcourt. "Monsieur Bernard, you despised your father. Your sketches reveal a deep-rooted resentment, but you did not act on your anger. Instead, you expressed it through art, a safer outlet." Bernard shifted uncomfortably, avoiding his mother's gaze. Poirot paused. His eyes settled on Sinclair. She sat rigidly, knuckles white, gripping the armrest of her chair. "Mademoiselle," he said softly, "the time has come." Camilla's eyes widened, but she said nothing. "You had the motive," Poirot continued. "Sir Felix discovered your embezzlement, a betrayal that could have ruined your career and your life. He confronted you, threatened you, and you had the opportunity. You were trusted enough to arrange the meeting at the lighthouse, where he thought he would gain the upper hand. But instead, you delivered the fatal blow." Camilla's breathing quickened. "I didn't plan to kill him," she whispered. "It just happened. I wanted to explain, to beg him not to report me, but he laughed. He said I was finished, that no one would ever hire me again. I panicked." "We," Poirot said, sympathetically yet firm. "In that moment of desperation, you struck him with whatever you could find, but your panic did not end there. You forced the lighthouse door to make it look like a break-in. You planted Captain Abbot's handkerchief. You staged the scene, so it seemed Sir Felix had been caught in an accident. But as meticulous as you were, you made mistakes." Camilla's gaze dropped to the floor. "The perfume," Poirot said. "Your signature scent, faint, yet unmistakable, in Sir Felix's room. And then the broken figurine, a gift from Sir Felix, one you despised. In your anger, you shattered it, but you left the pieces behind, unaware they would betray you." Camilla sobbed quietly. Tears streamed down her face. "He left me no choice," she whispered. "He was going to destroy everything I worked for. I didn't mean for it to happen." "But it did happen," Poirot replied. "And for that, you must face justice." The room fell into heavy silence. Lady Genevieve sobbed softly. Bernard stared at Camilla, betrayal clear in his eyes. Captain Abbot shook his head, shocked by the truth. Dr. Winslow cleared his throat, but Poirot raised a hand. "There is no more to say, Doctor. The truth has been revealed, and the authorities will arrive shortly." Camilla was led away quietly. Her sobs faded into the corridor. Poirot returned to the window. He gazed out at the cliffs and the sea beyond. The storm had passed, leaving the landscape eerily calm, serene, as if nature itself had exhaled a sigh of relief. "Justice, mes amis," Poirot murmured. "It may not undo the past, but it restores balance to the present. And in this balance, perhaps, we find peace." 2 days later, the guests of Harcourt Manor began to depart. The tension that once suffocated the household lifted. Lady Genevieve retreated to the family's country estate, seeking solace, far from the island's shadows. Bernard returned to London, his sketches, darker now, somber reflections of what had transpired. Poirot stood by the jetty, his compact suitcase at his side, as the ferry approached. Lavinia March, last to leave, stepped toward him. "You solved the mystery, Monsieur Poirot, but tell me, do you never tire of uncovering such darkness?" Poirot smiled faintly. "No, mademoiselle. For where there is darkness, there must also be light. The trick is in finding it." The ferry pulled away. The cliffs of Whispering Isle faded into the distance, but its secrets remained etched in Poirot's mind. The sea calm, endless, stretched before him, a reminder that, like the tides, truth always finds its way back to shore. And so, another mystery closed. Thank you for tuning in to Whispers of the Night. If you enjoyed the intrigue and the suspense, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more captivating detective adventures. Your support keeps the stories alive and the mysteries eternal.